Alright, first off, the internet. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, and it's also 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't want to be too loud. And my laptop is resting on top of my guinea pig's cage, and he's rather jittery and doesn't really like me standing above him like a vulture. So I'm going to try to make this brief, and I'm going to see if instead of shouting each day, maybe we can have a civil discussion, because I'm not really feeling up to it. But, alright. You don't know this about me, but I'm homeschooled, and my first 2 years of high school I went to a public school. So I have friends there, and then there's teachers I know. Particularly, I'm close to a certain English teacher who runs a poetry class. I think of myself as a poet, and a few times he's had me come in and do workshops, or when the school holds poetry slams, I'll drop by and join in on the fun. And sometimes I forget the school atmosphere, and he has to remind me about censorship. And I understand the need to both protect the integrity of spoken word, which gets called spoken F word, and I understand a school's position where they cannot endorse what they deem foul language. But the censorship runs deeper. There are taboo topics and opinions you can't have, subject matter that's not appropriate, and I'm criticized because I have to be reminded not to say fuck. But it's not just a word, it's an idea. It's one we can't have. Can't even talk about fuck when half my senior class is pregnant. What could be more appropriate than fuck? And no matter how many words we suppress, you cannot suppress ideas. There will always be another word for sex, for drugs, always another insult you can't say, always another slur. If you can't say faggot, you'll say fairy. And no matter how many words we blacklist, no matter the embargo we place on profanity, we cannot block out concepts. But they'll try to do that too. They'll ask, can't you write an apolitical poem? They want to know, can't you write without mentioning blood or sex or pain? And I can't for 1 second draw from such a shallow pool that I fail to notice the fact that we immerse ourselves in violence. We desensitize ourselves. Little boys playing war, playing spies, playing torture, but we don't want them to see a pair of tits because it might take away their innocence. I need to step back here and recognize there are viewers from all around the globe, and some of these countries are more backwards than others, and I like to think I have a global perspective, and I know I rant from an American perspective, and that's because Americans piss me off, and they're usually who I'm yelling at, and I want to say if this is less of an issue where you're from, I applaud that, and I recognize across Europe people are more reasonable in this respect. It's the love of violence and the fear of sex that's mainly an American disease, and reasonable cultures do not put this gravity on the human body. It seems to be mainly the United States population that is so sexually backwards that they learn to hate their own urges and are taught to fear sex and hate sex so much that the simplest and crudest of gestures become some glorified act. It should not be that sex is dirty or that it is wrong, and when I walk by a playground of a primary school and I hear young children talk and play, they are perfectly natural to wonder about their bodies, and I wonder, so much emphasis put on their bodies, they become unnaturally afraid and appalled by this nature. You hear them freak out when they notice one of the older girls is developing breasts, or when a boy and a girl play together, they learn to condemn this practice, that it is wrong, or you hear them say hugs are gay, and you see such a hatred for the capacity humans have to connect to one another. And it's only natural for them to giggle and joke about sex or about boys and girls kissing and holding hands, but why do I hear them use that word? Why do they, in hushed tones, point and say, that's wrong? Who taught them sex is wrong, and why do we raise our children, assuring women they never have to feel pressured into sex and threatening men into being afraid of this natural urge, and by age 12 everything's about sex, this one mighty wrong that no one should want, no one should think about, their whole world dragged through this process of making sex a horrid medical act. And introducing the concept that enjoying sex makes one dirty. How can that be? Why are women estranged from their bodies, and men afraid of women, women afraid of men, men suppressed? Everything about our culture tries to suppress sex, and yet it's our biggest weapon. It's our only weapon. Every marketing pitch, every movie, every song, it's all appealing to our fear and our love of sex, where sex becomes some forbidden god, and every mention of it becomes some secret ritual of worship. It's no wonder we have teenage pregnancies, no wonder we talk about sex crime, and no wonder the porn industry makes money on tasteless, talentless garbage, because it's the taboo nature of sex which attracts us. Our whole psychology flourishes on repressed urges and black alley gratification of something so natural and normal in any rational world. But this is about censorship. And people try to argue it's not the ideas they're against, it's the words. But when we change our language, we change our thinking. And the words 100 years ago that were filthy or upsetting are now sneezed at, and it's the ideas themselves that lose power. Why is it not taboo for me to threaten to beat and kill another person in a comedy routine? Why is it unacceptable for me to question my government's definition and treatment of a terrorist? Wittgenstein once wrote, "What we cannot speak about, we must pass over in silence." And by that he meant The ideas we are capable of expressing in our language are the ones we are capable of thinking. The more we limit our vocabulary, the more we limit our capacity for thought. And as we make a transition into PC terms like sexually active or disabled, the more we think of them. When we are allowed to call a ghetto an ethnically homogeneous area, we allow ourselves to avert the emotional distress one should feel and ought feel when discussing these things. And when we use a term like sexually active, we prohibit the thinking of the act of intercourse in any way besides a medical one. And in many situations, we need to divorce the concept from the connotations, but as we transfer our lexicon to fair weather speech, so too do we transfer our capability for comprehension parallel to our avoidance of profanity. In George Orwell's 1984, he brought up the concept of newspeak that, when fully used, made it literally impossible to think outside the box, so to speak. When you did not have the words for the concept of rebellion, you could not comprehend it, and that is where we're headed. I understand the need for censorship, but I do not trust the way it is manipulated or the power it gives others, people we don't. We're stripped of our equipment, and while in our daily lives we have to alter our linguistics according to a set of rules for what's work appropriate, we should never allow ourselves to forfeit our ability to speak. It's not just a word, it's never just a word, and it's never just a thought. And it should never be anyone else's right to tell us what we can't think, only what we cannot say. And what we can't speak about we must pass over in silence. Why am I the only person who sees anything wrong with this?